Politics or politricks? Political corruption often feels like a shadow lurking beneath the surface of governance. Each new scandal, like Eric Adams' recent indictment, serves as a reminder that ideals of democracy and integrity are frequently undermined by power struggles, financial gain, and abuse of trust. Corruption is a systemic issue that thrives in environments lacking accountability and transparency. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on the history of corruption. Trust me, the truth is darker and juicier than you think. Politicians and officials leverage their positions for personal gain through bribery, embezzlement, and favoritism, creating a culture where unethical behavior is not only tolerated, but expected. The lure of power can cloud judgment, leading to decisions that prioritize self-interest over the public good. A lack of robust oversight mechanisms fuels the continuation of this phenomenon. When checks and balances are weak, corrupt practices flourish. Additionally, public desensitization to scandals creates an atmosphere of complacency, where corruption is seen as an inevitable part of political life, rather than something to be eradicated. Eric Adams' case is particularly telling. As a prominent figure, his indictment raises questions about the ethical standards of political leadership. Situations like Adams' indictment fits into a pattern older than your grandma's recipes. Corruption isn't the exception. It's practically the house special on the menu. Corruption in U.S. politics has been around since, well, forever. Let's talk about Boss Tweed. This guy was running New York City in the 1800s like it was his own private piggy bank, taking bribes and kickbacks. Him and his cronies controlled everything from who got contracts to who got jobs, and they skimmed millions in taxpayer money. They built roads that led to nowhere and charged the city double for construction projects, pocketing the difference. When one reporter asked Tweed about the corruption, he just shrugged and said, "What are you going to do about it?" Bold, right? Adjusted for inflation, he stole about $2.5 billion. Yeah, billion with a B. Then there was Nixon and Watergate in the 70s. If you think modern scandals are messy, just remember this guy wiretapped the competition. This is not a modern problem. In the 1800s, Tammany Hall ran New York City like its own fiefdom. And then there's New Orleans in the 1920s, where corruption was practically a sport. The city's political machine, controlled by the infamous Huey Long, was so powerful that people joked the state bird should be the kickback. Long and his crew didn't just bend the rules, they rewrote them, using public money for their own pet projects. Long even had the nerve to say, "I steal from the rich and the poor, but at least I give back to the poor." So yeah, you could call him a kind of Robin Hood, if Robin Hood had kept a nice chunk of the loot for himself. Even the nation's capital has its fair share of dirt. We all know about Nixon and Watergate, but that wasn't the first or last time Washington got its hands dirty. Back in the 1870s, the whiskey ring scandal saw politicians and distillers conspire to defraud the federal government of millions in whiskey taxes. They basically set up a whole underground network to cheat Uncle Sam. The ringleader? A guy named John MacDonald, who was best buds with President Grant. Let's just say it pays to have friends in high places, and don't think it's just the big fish in Washington. Corruption happens everywhere, from sleepy little towns to cities that never sleep, and it's been going on for centuries. Take small-town corruption, for example. Ever heard of Bell, California? This little town of 35,000 became infamous in 2010 when it turned out city officials were paying themselves salaries that would make CEOs blush. The city manager made $800,000 a year, more than the President of the United States at the time. They used city funds for fancy cars, vacation homes, and even paid off loans for themselves. And they got away with it for years, right under the noses of the residents. In Dixon, Illinois, a city comptroller embezzled $53 million over 2 decades, using it to buy horses and fancy cars. How? Simple. She was the only one checking the books. Sometimes corruption is just a matter of nobody looking closely enough. And this isn't an isolated case in Illinois. 4 of the last 7 governors have ended up in prison. If you're running for office there, the job comes with a campaign slogan and a prison jumpsuit. So why does corruption keep happening? Simple. Power and money. Mix those two, and you've got yourself a cocktail that's way too tempting for politicians to pass up. That partnered with everyone's expectation that corruption is bound to happen. When you can shape laws and influence entire industries, there's always someone willing to slip you an envelope or 2 or 10. And then there's all that sweet, sweet cash flooding into politics. Lobbyists, donations, and backdoor deals. There's a whole underground world of political secrets where deals are made over cigars and whiskey, or, probably just lattes these days. From secret bank accounts in the Cayman Islands to using fake charities as piggy banks, politicians have gotten real creative. Did you know that in the 1980s, there was a scandal called Abscam, where undercover FBI agents posed as Arab sheikhs and caught politicians accepting bribes on camera? It was like an episode of Cops, but in suits. And then there's dark money. Cash that flows into campaigns from anonymous sources. It's like a shadow government. And it's another huge reason why corruption is so hard to weed out. The system is practically set up to keep secrets. Look, it's not that every politician is corrupt, but the ones who do get caught, they're usually following a script that's been around for centuries. Adams' case is just the latest proof that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Corruption doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's part of a larger ecosystem where influence is bought and sold. And until that changes, we'll keep seeing the same scandals, just with new faces. Corruption isn't some rare, once-in-a-lifetime event. It's a feature of our political system, not a glitch. And it's going to keep happening unless we find a way to break the cycle. And do not forget, in 2008, Rod Blagojevich, then governor of Illinois, tried to sell Barack Obama's vacant Senate seat to the highest bidder. He literally said on a wiretap, "I've got this thing, and it's f***ing golden." It was like a scene out of The Sopranos, except it was happening in real life, in the halls of power. So, next time you hear about a political scandal, don't be shocked. Save that energy for something truly unexpected, like a politician who actually follows through on their promises. Political corruption isn't a rare exception, and believing that it is, that's part of the problem. The system won't change overnight, and let's be honest, real change takes more than good intentions. Thanks for sticking around. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully with fewer scandals, but I wouldn't hold my breath.